Hello, my name is Craig Savage, but you can call me Doc, and welcome to another episode of Real World Analytics for What Schools Don't Teach You. If you've seen my frequently asked questions video, there's a number of topics I want to cover in this series, and I want to start with sort of the big one, the differences between academia and industry. So if you're currently in academia, if you're an undergraduate student, a graduate student, a postdoc, an instructor, a tutor, a researcher, etc., and you're considering making the transition to industry, then this video is for you. Personally, I've made this transition several times. I moved between academia and industry. I worked in different industries. When I started my career, I thought, right, I have a master's degree in applied mathematics. I want to go out and get a job, get promoted in that job, maybe find a new job, and everything was going to follow this nice path. But for me, it's been a little more diverse than that, shall we say. I've bounced around between industry jobs and academic jobs. There's a couple that I've labeled here as both. When I was working as an industry liaison to university, I was employed by an American company. We had a subcontractor to the University of Melbourne. So while everything I needed for my job was coming down from an industry perspective, all my colleagues were in an academic perspective. And then again, when I was working with Bionic Vision Australia, it was the other way. I was employed by the University of Melbourne, and yet all of my colleagues at the Bionics Institute were working in industry, and the task I had at hand was to write prototype code for the first Australian bionic eye. So it was a very industry-themed topic, but I was employed by a university. So in addition to my experiences, because I have bounced back and forth between them, various colleagues have come to me asking for my advice to try to transition between academia and industry, and that's both colleagues that I knew personally, and whenever I've given presentations, invariably someone's come up to me and said, hey, I'm working in academia, I'd like to move to industry, do you have any advice? And so this presentation, this video, is all about my advice condensed down into a short bite-sized chunk. Talk about why is there a difference between academia and industry. And I think largely it comes down to the incentives, and I've heard a one-sentence explanation of economics to be if you change the incentives, that people behave differently. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that there's a difference in behavior between academics and industry professionals. In academia, frequently there's a large research component, and you're meant to do things that are novel and innovative, and you're solving new problems in new ways that are more mathematically elegant or faster or more efficient. In industry, that's not normally the case. Frequently in industry, there are established problems that are solved with established methodologies, they have established tools, and the idea of being able to understand them or use them more efficiently, faster, cheaper, better interaction, better reporting is what's important, not the fact that you're doing something brand new, but rather you're doing the existing stuff better. And also there's a certain amount of politics. In academia, you are, if you're a researcher, you are by definition the first in your field, however narrow that field may be. And so you're positioning yourself as being the best. If we transition to industry and I'm a hiring manager, and here comes this person who's the best and who I may perceive they think that they're smarter than I am, well, that's a difficult position for me. That's difficult for my ego to say, well, here's this person, I think they're smarter than I am, do I really want to have them working for me? Both from a kind of cultural perspective, the same thing happens if you're going to be working for someone younger than you. It's just a little odd, in addition to the politics of the career of, well, is this person going to come and take my job? And there's a certain amount of positioning that happens there too, that if you're in academia and you're at the forefront of your field, you're number one, and you're going to come into industry, well, now you're positioning yourself that you're going to be working for me, well, you can't be number one anymore. So there's a certain difference that comes in there from a political point of view. So let's talk about how you make this transition from academia to industry. So the first thing I can encourage you to do is to share what you've done. There's this perception that academics live in their ivory tower and they don't play well with the rest of the world. By sharing, you help to counter that, whether that's having your academic papers, publishing them as Jupyter notebooks so that anyone can go and see the quality of your writing and the quality of your code, putting your code up on GitHub or some other version control site so that employers know that you know how to use version control and they can look at the quality of your code. So that includes things like, is your code indented, is it well commented, in addition to whether or not it's technically correct. And finally, you can share some information on LinkedIn. So you can talk about what conferences you're going to, what problems you're looking at solving, how nice it is to meet other people, and that how nice it is to meet other people I'll touch on again later. The other thing you can do is you can start to learn the jargon and the language in whatever industry you're going into. You may have a set of kind of standard journal references that you use all the time. Those may or may not be known in industry. Frequently in industry there's a textbook or some other adaptation of a lot of mathematics into whatever specific field. Find out what that text is. How can you do that? Well, you can talk to people who work in the industry. I mentioned keeping in mind LinkedIn about how nice it is to meet people. Advertise. Say that you're looking to move into this field and does anyone have any tips? You can reach out to me about credit risk or defense, but if there's any other industries that you're considering, don't discount how many people there are out there that are looking to mentor, that are looking to help. And you're going to reach out to them, and it may or may not work. And leveraging that further, it's good to have practice. Go on some mock interviews. Ask someone to give you a mock interview. Ask for feedback on your CV. What you need to do in order to make this transition between academia and industry. My first recommendation is to consider the difference between hard skills and soft skills. As an academic, you frequently live in this hard skill world. Can you employ different mathematical techniques to solve certain problems? Are you able to write code that works? And my advice there is that by working in academia, by having a certain degree, you've answered those questions, you have those hard skills, and in my opinion, the part about that transition is then demonstrating that you have all the soft skills. How's your communication? How's your writing? The coding that you've done, in addition to it being technically correct, is it easy for another person to follow? Is it commented? Is it indented? You may consider those things to be obvious, but trust me, they're not. And finally, are you able to take all that work you've done, all those mathematical techniques that you use to solve problems, and are you able to convert them into simple interpretations? It just so happens that you can demonstrate the writing by a Jupyter notebook, you can demonstrate that your code is easy to follow through a GitHub account, and you can give these simple interpretations through LinkedIn post updates. So everything that I mentioned about sharing, if you can do these things and with those channels, you're well on your way. And finally, you need to try. And you need to be ready to step back, to move forwards. And it can be a little odd to be at the forefront of your field doing this cutting edge research and to then go and try to open a LinkedIn account and put up some code on GitHub. And Yoda says that you should try not, you should do or do not, there is no try. Yoda further says, the greatest teacher failure is. So you might not get it right at first, and it might be a little odd for you to go from being the forefront of your field to being a beginner. You need to try. Go for it. And there's nothing that says you need to get it right on the first time, that it may take several iterations, but if you're able to go through these things, that will greatly aid you in your transition between academia and industry. You further should believe me that you don't need to get things right the first time, because you don't want to know how many times I've tried to record this video. Thank you for watching.